Hello, how's everybody doing? Paul Pedron, product manager for ZENworks, here to um, sh show you around a little bit of ZENcast. What is ZENcast? ZENcast is everything ZENworks. We try to cover different topics each week, or actually it's every other week. It's the first and third Tuesday of every month. And we're 9 o'clock Mountain Time, and we try and bring on guests. This week's guest is Darrin VandenBos. He's product manager of ZENworks. He will be talking to us about the new 2020 update to anti-malware. And then next week we're going to bring back, it's not the contract licensing. We're bringing back Vikram. Since last week we got cut off, or last ZENcast we got cut off. We're going to actually bring him back. He was nice enough to come back and give us another go. So again, we're first and third Tuesday of each month, 9 o'clock Mountain Time. And if you download this presentation, in the chat, there's a link, and I can put it back in again. If you didn't catch that, there's the link. Hey, Kurt, gonna be warm there. Yeah, it's gonna be warm here today too. So I know what you're feeling. It was 106 in Fresno, California, this last weekend, and I'll tell you, it was hot enough here in Idaho, but I remember the long stretches of heat. Thanks for joining us, Kurt. Appreciate it. And so we have the ZENcast Live upcoming schedule on-demand library. We're finding some permissions issues when they moved the blog over, so I'm going to recreate that blog this week so that you can have an updated schedule. It is a little bit off because I haven't been able to get in there and edit it. So we'll go ahead and continue on. A little ZENcast Live housekeeping. As you know, you can put an @ sign in front of, like if I wanted to talk to Kurt directly, I can start going and typing his name, and then I can say, hello, 82 here in Idaho. And so it'll go directly to him, and he actually gets a highlight on his end that somebody's direct messaging him. So know that that's there if you wanted to talk to somebody directly. Also, the exclamation commands are commands you'll see throughout my presentation, where if you missed a link or wanted to repost that, you can just put that command in with the exclamation point. Be sure to subscribe, and you'll get notifications and comments down below on the recordings afterwards. If for things that you want or about ZENcast, I monitor those regularly. So be sure to put those comments in, and any notifications you'll get if you're logged in. So also a link to this presentation. So if you bring down this presentation, you'll have a link. And then the Micro Focus support and training YouTube channel has, I want this actually over here. I keep doing this so we are live. You can see that there. We're going to be doing anti-malware today. But you have different products in here. The endpoint management has ZENworks, ZENcast, Service Desk, and desktop containers. So there's training videos and other webinars and stuff in there. So that link is here as well. Be sure to set your autoplay off and your quality at 720/60, and you'll probably get the best part of this stream. The ZENcast schedule. So yes, subject to change, as it says on the bottom. We have update to anti-malware today. Next week we're bringing Vikram back to do ZCM 2020 update 2 ideas and features that you, the customers, brought to this particular product, and then that will be released in update 2. And then July 6th, yeah, I'm taking a little break there. It's over our 4th of July holiday, so I'm going to not stream at that point. But the 20th, we're bringing in MX Connect with Ed Gavin as a guest. And then after that, remember we had, way back when, we had imaging in April 6th. We're going to do part 2 of that with Moises Morales in technical support on the 3rd of August. So be sure to take a look at those. Come back if you're interested in any of those. We'd happy to have you and understand what your needs are for those particular topics. Micro Focus portal, if you're having issues, here are some details there. There's TIDs, there's videos, things to get around your SLD and those types of things. If you're having problems, most important part is the bottom. Report any discrepancies you have with your particular account, and depending on your area, so that we can get that fixed for you. The last thing you want is to be doing an upgrade, needing a license number, needing a download, and you can't get to it, right? So be sure to check that, so that you're able to get what you need in your portal. All right, ZCM Suite, we're currently at 2020 Update 1, and there's a TID there for the different details about 2020 Update 1, which includes ZDC, agent cleanup, and those types of things. The ZENworks 2020 Update 2 beta program has ended, and now we're in the Lighthouse part of it, so it's getting close. Really excited to see these new features coming into this product. ZCM 2017 extended support expired April 30th. So if you're on 2017, we understand. We want to get you onto 2020 to get a hold of those new features and fixes. So get a hold of us and migrate. There's an upgrade TID out there and things you can do to migrate your system. So that way you have full support. Okay, OWS extension for Workgroup Suite. There is an extension for the Workgroup Suite where you can actually get the full complement of ZCM 2020 Suite. Okay, the other things that you may not have if you have just the OWS Suite. All right. We're currently again on ZCM 2020 Update 1. Actually, I didn't update this slide. This is an older slide. May is out there. I don't think June has been posted yet. And then there are imaging wow, I thought I updated this. There is, so you know, May they did imaging driver updates. So there's a new imaging driver update. You should be able to find those on the SLD. Apologize for the update on this particular slide too. Also ZCM Mobile, couple of TIDs to be aware of. ZAM, Assistant Director of Education Experience, a premium quality and asset management. Again, we're highlighting some Gartner Peer Insight things that people are announcing about ZENworks, which is always good. Know that ZMM, ZENworks Mobile Management, the legacy mobile management ended first of the year. So be aware that you need to move to the ZCM Mobile Management if not. ZPM Patch Tuesday Highlights is out there. So go out there if you're using Patch. It's really a great article that Darrin puts out each month, and it's about particular OSs and the details about different updates. So that's really handy if you're doing updates, so you can kind of prepare yourself and understand which is critical and how it might affect the systems. There is a ZENworks Patch Management course, 250 out there. So be aware that there is that as well. We're excited about that. And then ZRS is currently at 7.2. Appliance online update for security patches February and May. So if you haven't done your online updates, double check. May they came out. You can get those security updates in there. And then future release of ZRS is version 7.8. It'll be released with 2020 update too. Okay. MFDC, again, a version 21 has been really increasing in different enhancements each version, and there's some details there and some training videos if you're interested in understanding more about the latest MFDC, which is micro-focused desktop containers, virtualizing those apps. There is a partner training course. If you're a partner out there, and I know some of the partners listen out here, there's a partner training course L320 that's coming soon. Okay. ZSD we're currently at 8.2.1. Just had that update a month ago. May 26 is the patch updates again, so make sure you get your patches updated for that appliance. And then any details, if you download this particular slide deck, you'll have details to these particular links and customization cookbook and so forth. Okay, and these are some of the latest, since it was just updated ZENworks Service Desk, these are some of the improvements that we put on here for you in that product. Okay. Filer drop-in. So Robin Redgrave's out there. He's doing a similar thing that we are once a month for the Filer team, for those doing Filer. You can drop in. You can get your calendar updated with that. Also on my blog, I will have calendar updates. So big request of being able to populate your calendar during for these particular ZENcast events. New and improved, we got a partner page and an SE corner. So there's a pre-sales for those partners out there. There's pre-sales certification, L300 training course out there. And then connected, IM&G and connected and MX connected um, are highlighted in the IM&G, which is a where ZENworks falls into as far as Micro Focus is concerned. And SE Corners, we had Bob Reynolds and Todd Laycock went ahead and did a webinar, and I will pause this. 5 killers of your data security and how to fix them. So go on out there and check out that webinar. It's really informative and has a lot of details in there that you might really get to understand. So that's good. Some of the event recordings, TTP EA, this was last quarter. We have the webinar index. We have the on-demand sessions for Realize 2021, which happened in May. Just so you know, you can go and view those sessions as additional resources. Articles. I have a couple articles here about the IDC and what they're publishing about ZENworks. Also, let others know about it. There's Gartner Peer Insights surveys and the ZENcast Progress Survey, which you've seen before. Did I go too many? No. Okay. ZCM Update 2, what's new? There's an article out there, as well as a couple of articles Darrin and Vikram did earlier for Open Horizons. ZENworks Communities has moved, so the links will be the same for you, but we moved it to a new platform and a new look and feel. So go on out there, check it out, and hopefully we've improved some navigation for that. And then a recap. So this last ZENcast was ZCM 2020 Update 2, Customer Ideas Baked In, right? What you guys provided for ZCM 2020 Update 2 and that we put into with the ideas exchange and customer visits and so forth, what we put into the product for ZCM 2020 Update 2. It will also be next ZENcast since we got cut off last week. Okay, so we're going to have him back, so not a whole lot to recap there, but I am excited to say our guest today is Darrin VandenBos, and he's going to have a discussion and demonstration of ZCM 2020 Update 2 Antimalware. Let me see if we can get Darrin on. Darrin, how are you?
I'm great, Paul. How are you today?
Very well, very well. We're going to put your screen over here so we can see it. So, Darrin, product manager of ZENworks. You're in charge of the new components of anti-malware coming into the product. We're excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I think that all of our customers will be as well with what we've done and what we've been able to add.
I think it's going to be yes, I think it's going to be a great improvement for security. So, yeah, I know you have a slide deck ready to go. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you so you can tell us more about this anti-malware and show us what we got.
Great, thanks, Paul, and thanks for having me on today. Although I will say that coming off of a 3-day weekend here in the U.S., it's nothing, jumping right in the first couple hours back. It's a lot of fun. So
sure. Let me do a quick shout out to chat. Kurt, you can hear sound. I know you're on. So, Kurt, let's make sure we have a sound check for Darrin. And we got about a 25-second delay. So let's see what he responds with. I want to make sure I see you coming in over here. And the volume of Darrin also, if it's higher than mine or louder than mine, let me know. I can adjust those as well. Let's see what Kurt comes back with. Or anybody out there in chat. Let's see what they say. So Darrin, was it hot over where you're at
It
this
is.
last weekend? Yeah,
It's heating up,
yeah.
getting warmer.
Summer's here. It is getting warmer.
It is.
We're just switching over to you. I see it on my other screen, so Kurt will be responding here in a minute. Actually, I can actually direct it to him. Get it right now, Kurt. Yes, a little bit higher. That's what I thought. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and raise your mic a little bit. And Kurt, just shout out in chat if that's not enough. Thank you very much. Darrin, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much for joining us, and appreciate your time to show us this.
Great. Thanks, Paul. All right. So it's great to be with you here today and to talk about the ZENworks Endpoint Security Antimalware, one of our main additions to the ZENworks 2020 Update 2 release. As Paul mentioned, we just wrapped up our beta program, and we are going into our Lighthouse program, where that's rolled out to, where the release product is rolled out to specific customers, and we help them put it into their production system and then get feedback just to make sure that we have a range of customers giving us feedback, and we can make sure we can see if anything goes, potentially that we can see if we missed anything that potentially might impact you, and make sure that we are handling that before it gets out to the general public. So we're close on that, but let's talk about endpoint security anti-malware and what that is. So what we're doing in ZENworks Endpoint Security Anti-Malware, obviously, is we're providing protection against malware threats. We provide protection against known and unknown malware threats, viruses, worms, spyware, adware, keyloggers, rootkits, so forth. And we do it using the ZENworks centrally administered. We use it using ZENworks Control Center, so everything is centrally administered and it's policy configured. The anti-malware scan engine is all configured through ZENworks Control Center, so you have complete control over the configuration through policies and other configuration settings. The scan engine provides both real-time, also known as on-access scanning, as well as on-demand scanning. Those are the scheduled scans that you can do, the full scan, the quick scan. We also have a custom scan and a network scan available, as well as users can do contextual scans. That's where they right-click on a folder and scan the folder. External removable drive scans as well. Those types of things are all considered on-demand scanning. But of course, on-access or real-time scanning is what you really want to. You need both. You need both on-access and on-demand scanning, but it's the real-time scanning that is very important to make sure that you have configured in your environment. So that's on the endpoint. It's great to configure policies and have your anti-malware scan engine set up to detect and protect against threats. But you also want to know what's going on all of those endpoints. So we provide extensive threat monitoring through ZENworks Control Center. Showing detected malware threats, as well as the current malware status of endpoints. And I'm going to show you all of this in a little bit. We'll go through a demo where you'll be able to see both the endpoint and the ZENworks Control Center dashlets on the security board that we've added. Of course, the scan engine is actually well, I'll mention it again in a little bit, but the scan engine is provided by a third-party partner. I'll talk about that partner in just a minute, but in terms of the technology, to really protect devices against malware threats today, you need to have a scan engine that uses a variety of technologies. The first one listed there is excuse me. The first one listed is signature-based detection. A lot of people think that signatures are outdated, but that is actually far from the truth. For being able to detect known threats, signature detection is actually the fastest way to be able to do that, the fastest and quickest to be able to capture those known malware threats. So signature-based detection is the first level of what we do. Generic detection, the scan engine also provides generic detection, which is its ability to be able to, from known threats, be able to detect variants of that threat family on the fly and be able to detect and remediate those variants as well. Then, of course, the most advanced layer of threat detection is the heuristics-based detection. And the heuristics-based detection uses a variety of algorithms and behaviors to determine whether or not a threat, whether or not a file contains a threat, or the device is being impacted by a threat that's not known, that may be zero-day threat, or it may not be zero-day, but it may be something that for which a signature hasn't been released quite yet. So something like that. But to protect against again those unknown threats. The heuristics-based detection uses a variety of underlying technologies. Emulation is one of those that it's built on, and that's basically taking a file and exploding it in a secure virtual environment to see what the behavior of that file is, and to see what it does, and be able to determine from that behavior whether or not the threat is an actual malware threat, or whether it's just a suspicious file, or whether it's it's okay, it's a clean file. In addition, we use a lot of other technologies, executable unpackers, archivers, to be able to dig into and reach into different types of archives, so that nothing can potentially be embedded in an archive that could end up damaging the machine, as well as being able to check executables that are potentially wrapped in and embedded in other programs, and then file format analyzers and parsers. Obviously, there's a lot of different files out there, and to be able to analyze those, we need to be able to parse those and know what's going on with those. In terms of the platforms that we are providing endpoint security anti-malware for, both we're doing this on the Windows platform. So in terms of workstation OSs, it's Windows 10 and anything that's newer than that, which Microsoft has recently talked about their next generation of Windows 10, whatever that might be called, as well as servers, anything that's Windows Server 2012 or newer can be, the endpoint security anti-malware can be used on those servers. And our anti-malware solution is packaged as part of ZENworks Endpoint Security Management. That means that if you currently own ZENworks Endpoint Security Management, that when Update 2 releases, you will automatically receive anti-malware as part of that product offering. There won't be an additional charge for that. We're rolling it into endpoint security management. So you'll be able to get that. You'll have access to that right away. There will be a separate anti-malware update entitlement key that you will need to download from your portal. And what that does is that gives you access to use anti-malware during the course of your maintenance period, or if you're doing subscription during the course of your subscription period. You can kind of think of it as the same thing as your system update key. When you purchase ZENworks, you get a system update key that entitles you to system updates during your maintenance or subscription period. The anti-malware update key is the same idea. ZENworks Endpoint Security Management is included in the ZENworks suite and in Open Workgroup suite. So if you have either of those suites, you will also be entitled to use the ZENworks Endpoint Security Anti-Malware. I mentioned a little while ago our partner who provides our anti-malware engine and security content. Obviously, it takes a lot of expertise to be able to do something like a scan engine. We recognize and want the best anti-malware protection possible for you as customers. That meant going out and partnering with someone who's a leader in the industry. The contract that we have with this OEM provider actually does not allow me to talk about or to give the customer's name in a general setting. I can do it one-on-one, face-to-face, or email to email. So if you want to know the actual name of the customer, drop me a line at zen@microfolks.com, and I'm happy to have the one-on-one conversations with you and let you know about it. But just in terms of their credentials, they are every year they're consistently a top 3 anti-malware software provider in terms of their own product, ranging literally anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3, depending on the magazine or the organization that's doing the review. They're considered a top 2 anti-malware technology provider, which I think is important to mention because that gives you an idea of the type of support that you'll get through us when there's an issue with that's not related to ZENworks, but it's related to the scan engine. They are in the top 2 in terms of providing support and to their technology partners as well as their customers. Let's talk, I'm going to take a minute and just walk through in terms of some slideware here, some of the main features, and then we'll dive into the demo to give you a live look at what we have going on. So in terms of the endpoint scanning, to detect threats and then the remediation of those threats. The anti-malware engine provides all scanning and remediation. We install the anti-malware engine on the endpoint when an anti-malware enforcement policy is applied. That's a little bit different than what you're used to with the modular approach of ZENworks. Typically, when you enable a product, so let's say that you enable ZENworks Endpoint Security Management, what happens is that the agent pieces are put down on the device for you to be able to use that simply when the product's activated. We're not doing that with anti-malware, so that you have complete control over when that anti-malware scan engine is put onto the device, so that it's not laid down on a device prior to you actually wanting to enforce something on the device. The Antimalware agent, as I mentioned, provides on access or real-time scanning. That means that when files are open, moved, copied, executed, that the files are being scanned and any threats are being detected in those files. And then on-demand scanning, talked about that, full, quick, custom network scans and so forth. In terms of threat remediation, if a file is infected, then the different remediation options are to obviously to try to disinfect that file, to quarantine it, to delete the file, to deny access to the file. So if it's an on-access scan, and a threat is detected that can't be disinfected, quarantined, deleted, or if you've configured your policy so that the behavior for the scan engine is to deny access to the to threats instead of doing something else, that can happen, or ignored. There's also the possibility to ignore files. Suspect files, the same things, denied access, quarantined, deleted, or ignored. The difference being with suspect files is that since there's no signatures available for a suspect file, you can't disinfect those yet. But what happens is that with a suspect file, things are reported up. If it's a threat, then a signature will be developed for that by the malware research lab and pushed out in the next signature update, which occurs every well, we do a check for new updates every hour. You can configure that. That's the default configuration, but you can configure when that happens.
So we do have a question
And
in chat
okay,
about
great.
installation. Is it installed as part of the ZCM agent as a spoke, or
No,
and maybe you'll cover
yeah,
that in just a minute.
I can show that.
Okay, great.
I will, but no, it's not installed as part of the spoke. So first of all, remember it's part of ZENworks Endpoint Security Management. So when you activate ZENworks Endpoint Security Management, there is an endpoint security um, agent feature, right? Um, if you install that, the anti-malware agent still is not put onto the device as part of that. Instead, we literally wait until you assign a policy, an anti-malware enforcement policy to the device, at which time the agent is installed on the device. And there's actually some different installation options that I'll show you. You can have, by default, the agent is installed when the policy is enforced on the device, but you can actually schedule when that installation is. So let's say that you are which best practices would be to change that, because let's say that you assign the policy to um, to uh, 5,000 devices at one time. Rather than that anti-malware agent bundle being pulled down to all devices at one time, you can set a schedule so that it's pulled down at various times, and that schedule can be set at a zone level, overridden at a device folder level, and then overridden again at a device level. So you have complete control over bandwidth that's being used for distributing that anti-malware agent. It is about 750 megabytes, so we'll want to make sure that um, you are aware of that install schedule and set it up and roll things out appropriately. Now, the great thing about it is that once that anti-malware engine is installed on the device, all of the updates come through online through the product update schedule, which you can control as well. By default, we check for product updates every 4 hours. You could have it check for product updates, every 2 weeks if you wanted. The You'll want to keep the signature updates at a relatively smaller interval than that. But in terms of the product updates, You could move that out if you want. We just felt like 4 hours was a good starting point, and then you can modify that if uh, if need be. But what happens is, because all of the base code is down, the product updates just all they are is a delta of what's changed. So very quick, and as I mentioned, once you have the agent on the device, even when you go from update 2 to update 3, uh, you won't be rolling down a new agent. You won't be like you would a ZENworks agent. You won't be rolling out. What'll happen is that the anti-malware agent will continue to update itself online through its mechanism, so that there's never the need to roll out that 750 megabyte file again.
So it's done via the component itself and not Zeus from that.
Exactly,
Gotcha. So
exactly,
it keeps itself updated.
exactly.
Perfect.
Yep.
There's one other question from
Mhm.
Jose. Will there be future consideration for agentless or MDM endpoint support for this service?
Well, when you say agentless, maybe you can get some clarification for me, Paul. When you say agentless, are you talking um, no anti-malware scan engine? So you're talking all online scanning, or are you talking support for the scan engine in a non on a machine that has no ZENworks agent on it?
Let's see what it comes back with. I went ahead and responded to define the agentless portion of that. Uh, in my thought process, I'm thinking it's the MDM. You know how we're doing the agentless ZenWorks now? We can
Right.
use the native Windows 10. I'm thinking that's the line he was going on, but I'm not sure. We'll see what
Yeah.
Jose comes back with.
Yeah. So maybe while we're waiting, I can just talk a little bit towards that. I
Thank you.
mean, um, there are different ways that scanning can be done. We are using a local scan engine. Scanning can be done online, basically by hitting by a server online somewhere that scans the device. We're not doing that. So as of right now, you do have to have the scan engine. Um, Going forward, when we get to the point um, where you can go completely without a ZENworks agent, and so in other words, everything is being or to a point where uh, we provide enough feature parity, I would say, with the that you get with the ZENworks agent. So where you can go without the full ZENworks agent. At that point, we obviously will need to be able to make the local scan engine work with in an MDM only environment, or decide if we are going to also go with an hosted um, scan scanning technology rather than the local scan engine.
Okay, I think that answered the question because he did come back with the Windows 10 MDM similar to the agentless that we're
Right,
doing there. So
right.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate those
great, great,
answers.
great questions. Um, in terms of the configuration, I mentioned this briefly before, but policies are assigned endpoints via ZENworks Control Center. Control all anti-malware settings such as scan behavior, scan targets, exclusions, remediation actions, quarantine behaviors, configuration settings, control schedules. We have, in terms of policies, we have 4 policies that are available for anti-malware. The only one of which is required, and that's the first one. It's the anti-malware enforcement policy. It's required because it basically it initiates the installation of the agent, as we previously talked about, and then it provides the settings for all of the what you would consider the base scans that you have. So the on-access scanning or the real-time scanning, if you want to think of it that way, the on-demand scanning, full, meaning full and quick scans, the removable drive scanning, and contextual scanning, and then the quarantine management. You can see all of these things over here on the in the ZENworks Control Center. There are tabs for each of those areas to configure those things. So that's the base the base policy that needs to be applied to a device. In addition to that, to that policy, we provide a custom, and I should back up just a second. So a device only has one anti-malware enforcement policy, one effective anti-malware enforcement policy, which means that if you apply one obviously high in the hierarchy to, let's say that you apply one to a device folder and then apply an anti-malware enforcement policy to the device, the effective policy becomes the one that's closest to the device, which would mean that it's the one assigned to the device. So it would, right, so there's only one anti-malware enforcement policy that is assigned on a device to give you the ability, which means that you only have one full scan, one quick scan, that type of thing, to give you the ability to do custom scans. So maybe it's a thing where you need to do an immediate check for rootkits or some other emergent malware threat, right? That is targeting a specific part of the device. To give you the ability to do that, or to even change up the schedule. Maybe that's it's a thing where you want to maybe you want to uh, maybe you want to scan an area of the device that is scanned by a full scan, but you don't want to scan everything in terms of that device that is scanned by a full scan, and maybe you want to do that more frequently than a full scan. So the custom scan gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to add in additional scans that in addition to the base scans. You can have multiple custom scans assigned to a device, each with their own schedule of when they're run. Then we also do it's a specialized custom scan. It's called a network scan policy. And what that does is it allows you to assign the policy to a device and have that device on a regular interval scan network share or a set of network shares. So it's really it's a scheduled scan where you can use one device to scan the network shares that you might want to scan that way. The last policy is a scan exclusions policy. So each of the other three policies, the anti-malware enforcement policy, the custom scan policy, and the network scan policy, allow you to define scan exclusions in the policy. If you see the screenshot over on the right of the policy, you'll see an exclusions tab. Each policy has an exclusions tab like that, where you can include file exclusions, exclusions for certain file extensions, processes, folders, all things that you can exclude from the various types of scans. And you can set the exclusion based on the scan. So you don't have to have the same scan exclusions for on access as you do for full and so forth. But you can do each of those in policy within these three policies. You can also do basically use the scan exclusions policy to do kind of a global set of scan exclusions, or maybe it's a set that you want applied to, maybe it's the other way, it's an additional set that you want applied to your finance department, but you don't want it applied to the rest of the rest of the company. So you can use these to define in a separate policy that then gets merged into the scan exclusions that are defined in the other policies. In terms of scan schedule, you can set up different scan schedules for your full and quick scans, as well as your custom and network scans as well. I think this is an important one to make sure that we mention, and that is that as administrators, you get to determine how much interaction your end users have with the anti-malware agent and with event notifications that occur, both threat notifications or security notifications, as well as just the actual agent notifications, things going on with the agent. So in terms of scanning, remediation, and quarantine, you can configure whether or not users have the ability to initiate scans, decide what to do with suspect files, manage quarantine files. You can also determine whether or not end users can pause or postpone or even cancel the scans that you've started through a policy. By default, the default settings allow end users to pause, postpone those scans. They don't allow them to cancel those scans. But again, you have complete control over the what actions you want the end user to be able to take on the device. And then in terms of notifications and alerts, you can see some in the screenshot. There's you can determine what type of alerts and the severity of alerts that end users see. You can also completely hide the anti-malware agent from and the security console from end users if you want everything just working in the background, right? So if you have no need for end users to be able to run their own scans and you don't want them seeing pop-ups about different notifications, then you can completely hide that as well. We have device status monitoring. I'm not going to go over this a whole lot because I'm going to again show you what's going on, but we have different security dashlets. We also have a device anti-malware view. So on each device on the page, you'll be able to see for that device specific information about the anti-malware agent, as well as the schedules, as well as the threats that have been detected and the files that are infected. And then we've also implemented a malware view. So you can kind of think of that as you know, when you're in ZCC, you can click on malware and that's been detected, and it takes you to the page that tells you some information about the malware, the infected devices, and so forth. The last part that we mentioned before the demo is about updates. So to be able to handle updates, we've introduced a new on-demand solution, an on-demand service within the ZENworks architecture. And what that does is it allows basically the endpoints, the devices, to initiate a request themselves for an update, and for that update to be pulled down through the system if it's not already in the system. So let me give you an example. If we're looking at a workstation and we have an update check for signature updates to occur every hour, well, on that hour, the workstation reaches out to its one of the content servers in its list of content servers that it's assigned to, and says, is there a new signature update to be had? That's all done. You can kind of think of this as a kind of a caching proxy type thing. So if the current signature that the content server has expired, meaning that its time to live has expired, it's going to say, yes, I have one, but it's outdated. So I'm going to go up the chain to my parent primary server or content server or whatever is configured in its line and request it from there. It does that. If that content server has it, a newer one, it rolls it down to the requesting content server, which then rolls it down to the device. If it doesn't have it, it finally goes all the way back to what we're calling an on-demand content master that's on a primary server. And this is a primary server that um, has a connection to the external source, uh, where where, for example, the signatures or the product updates, because product updates have this as well. It reaches back to the external source and says, "Hey, give me the latest product update or signature update," and then rolls it back down. So you, and each of these content servers along the way obviously caches what it gets so that the next workstation that asks it for an updated signature, it says, well, I have a signature, its time to live is still active. This is the latest one. So or it's within the time to live time frame, so you get that one. So again, we rather than replicating out signatures. So for example, rather than, I'll use the example of patch management where we download patches from a patch repository and then replicate those out using the bundle system to all of the content servers. Instead, with Antimalware, we have introduced this new on-demand content system to allow requests and servicing of those requests on demand. Uh, One thing that I want to mention because of this, you'll notice that that it all goes back through the content system. That means that any of your devices that you have external to your network, to receive an update, they will need to, you'll need to have um, a content server in your DMZ that it can reach back to for those, or they'll need to be VPN'd in so that they can hit um, their content server that way. All right, Paul, before I continue, are there any other questions that I've generated
No other
there?
questions. Go ahead with the demo. This is great.
Okay,
Thank you so much for that
great.
information.
Yep. Hey, Paul, just a time check. What do I have?
You have a half hour.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so here we are in ZENworks Control Center on the policies page, and you can see that I have three policies listed here. Um, I'm actually only going, well, my system has been used recently by a couple of developers, so the bottom two policies I have actually no idea about other than I know what they are. So I'm going to focus on this top one, this anti-malware enforcement policy, because that's my policy. Obviously, this one down here is an anti-malware enforcement policy that the developer created to test on their machine, and then this is a custom policy that we'll show later. But the anti-malware enforcement policy, um, already created one. I'm going to open it up and go into details. And it should still look a lot like what that screenshot um, in the slide deck looked like. You can see that the different types of scans that are controlled by the enforcement policy are listed above, as well as the quarantine and then the exclusions. If we look at on-access scans, you notice that you can enable or disable on-access scans on a device. You can do the same thing for full scans, quick scans, external device scans. Contextual scans are never, you can't enable or disable those separately. Those are always available if the user has access to the anti-malware agent. If the user doesn't have access, then they're turned off as well. Now, we give you the ability to enable and disable on-access scans. The fact of the matter is, unless you're troubleshooting something or having an issue with something, working with Micro Focus support on something, you really, or potentially having on-access real-time scan provided by something else, you would never want to disable your on-access scanning ability, because again, that's what provides the real-time protection as files are copied, moved, open, executed. So you want to keep that enabled. You can see in a policy that you can choose. Okay, I want to scan local files and I want to scan all files. That's the default. That means that anything local that's opened, I'm going to scan. If you don't want all files, you could do applications only. What do we mean by that? Well, there's actually a list of the applications that will be scanned, or you can scan defined file extensions only as well. You can also scan network files. So that means that if the user is opening a file from a network share or something like that, then that can be scanned as well. We have some different scan behavior where you can choose to scan only new or changed files, boot sectors, keyloggers. All of these things are completely configurable by you. I will say that what you're seeing right here is the default settings for what is considered a normal scan. When you create the policy, you get the option to choose between permissive scan, a normal scan, or a I just went blank. 3-day weekends are killers that way. Basically, a high security scan, and it sets these options differently depending on what you choose. This is the normal default, the settings for a normal default scan. You can also see that down below that you can choose the remediation actions. So when an infected file is detected, the default action is to disinfect it. If that can't be done, then the file is moved to quarantine. If a file is a suspect file, the default action is to deny access, and really what happens is if that fails, well, the deny access will not fail. So both options are deny access on those. You can do the same thing for full scans. Again, you can see that for a full scan, we add in the what do you want to scan, the scan targets, and by default it's all local drives and all removable drives that are being scanned by a full scan. All files on those, again, the scan behaviors and the remediation actions. This is what I was talking before about in terms of user rights. So for a full scan, can the user start scans and pause, postpone, or cancel those scans? So those are the ones that are user initiated on the device. Or can they just pause scans or postpone scans? The same thing is true of quick scans, external device scans, contextual scans. Again, all completely configurable if you want to, or my recommendation is to start off with the normal scan and take a look at those and then see if there's anything additional that you want to do. But hopefully the normal scan has been designed to provide the best performance, or the best protection, balancing and performance, and in most cases should be able to meet your needs. The quarantine, you can choose what happens with the quarantine on the device. for example, rescan, quarantine after malware signature update. So for example, if a threat was detected that couldn't be disinfected, so it was moved to quarantine, this will actually rescan the quarantine when a new signature is updated. And if it can be disinfected, that file will be disinfected and restored. We talked about exclusions before. We have a couple of different types of exclusions. The first one is built-in exclusions. The built-in exclusions are the exclusions that Microsoft has defined for its products. So if you go out and you do a search on antivirus scan exclusions for Windows, you'll get to a page that says Microsoft recommends that these files not be scanned or be excluded from scanning. Those are the built-in exclusions that we automatically do. We also provide ZENworks exclusions so that the anti-malware is not interacting unfavorably with the ZENworks agent and the other ZENworks components on the device. And then the third thing that we add is the ability to do custom exclusions. So you can use custom exclusions, select new, and then you notice that you can select the type of exclusion you want. You can provide the file. This could be a specific path, or it could be just a generic file that it could be a file name that's found anywhere on the device, a folder or a process, whatever. And then you can choose which scans the exclusion applies to. All right, I'm going to actually bounce over from the policy.
So I do
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I do have one question regarding the local drives
Uh-huh.
that you could scan. What if you have a network drive? Is it going to scan the network drive as well if it's mapped? Do we need to exclude that?
No, it will not. So these are local fixed disks.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
So, yeah. The only way to scan a network drive or share is through the network scan policy, which is a
Perfect.
separate policy.
Perfect. Thank you
Yep.
so much.
So, yep, you bet. Okay, so I was actually going to start on the endpoint before showing the policy, but I jumped right into the policy for forgetting about the fact that I had the endpoint up here. But let's look a little bit at the endpoint. Here. So down in the notification tray, you see ZENworks Endpoint Security. That is the anti-malware agent. You can see that it brings up a security console that has an event log. It shows that right now that my system is updated. It shows that I've done an update process. There's been 8 of them since any other action has occurred. And you can see that the product version, and the engine version. Engine version refers to the basically the malware signature version that's been downloaded. You can see that that's changed a few times, whereas the product version has not. It didn't update and it has not changed. A quick scan was run there as well. It also lets you do some things. For example, you can the end user can initiate a quick scan or a full scan. You could also create a new custom scan to do or anywhere on the device. Aggressive, there we go. There's the word, the high security one that I was losing earlier. And it can fall into any of these categories, or they can customize the settings as well. Now, again, you can control whether or not the end user even has access to any of this. quarantine. You can see that files on this machine have already been quarantined, and they can be restored to, deleted, emptied. Again, which these actions can be controlled through the policy as to whether or not the user can even do any actions on the quarantine. I'm going to show the on-access scan working by extracting this. I've got some malware threats. They're not real. They're files that have been specially crafted to imitate malware threats. I'm going to extract that onto the device. And obviously by extracting that, that means that a move is happening. So the on-access scan will flag some of these. So I'm going to click OK. You can see that it's starting to extract. And down here in the corner, we get notifications. Again, notifications that you can control whether or not the user sees those notifications as well. Now, if we go back into the console, we'll see how these came in. We'll see that okay, there were four on-access scanning as detected a threat. No configured action could be taken, but access to the file has been denied. So that happened with 4 of the files that were in this zip file. Another file, the file was deleted. In this case, the file was quarantined, and here's another one where the file has been denied. If we go and look at the quarantine, we'll actually see 7 items now, and we'll see that that one was quarantined there as well. What happens is whenever a scan is run and files are detected or threats are detected, what happens is that we do some processing in the background. There's about a 5-minute delay because as a scan is going on, it could be that a threat is found, and then it goes on a little bit more and another thread is found, particularly for the on-demand ones. So we have about a 5-minute delay in rolling that information up to the server. But what happens is that information is rolled up to the server, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. But I also wanted to show while we're here, we also have a full set of ZAC commands for the malware actions, and you can see they are all preceded with malware. So, for example, you can list the policies that are assigned. You can see the agent status. Some of these things require administrator approval. For example, clear the folder security. We protect the folder that the events are written to so that nothing can be modified. And you can see that ZENworks Home ZAV events folder. We protect that as well as some other areas. This allows you to clear that folders. Probably, which you probably really only do when you're working with Micro Focus support, but it allows you to clear the security so you can see what those events are and stuff in that folder. You can do a quarantine restore from ZAC. This all lets you be able to do some scripting. So, for example, if there was something that you wanted to run outside of the policy, or just through maybe as part of some maintenance script or something where you wanted to do a scan of some type, you could be able, or you wanted to make sure that the latest update was on the device prior to doing something else, some other type of maintenance. You could script all of that and run it through the ZAC commands. In terms of other scans that occur, for example, a quick scan, they're always accompanied by a log that shows the results on here. There was nothing found in this scan, but on the endpoint it shows some various stats and stuff. I'm going to jump back to ZENworks Control Center at this point. What did I do with my ZENworks Control Center? There we go. And back, I'm going to give just a couple more minutes for those results to come out. But I thought at this point I'd show you how the policies are created. They're created exactly like you do any other endpoint security policy. Go in and you can choose the type of policy. See? You can see with the anti-malware enforcement policy, we actually added quite a bit of text to the description. And the main thing that we added is that by default, the anti-malware agent, approximately 750 megabytes, is downloaded and installed on the assigned device after the device refreshes. So we give you a little reminder here that you'll probably want to set up a installation schedule that randomizes the installation of the agent on newly assigned devices as well. So that's the enforcement policy, the custom scan policy, and the anti-malware scan exclusions policy. The scan exclusions policy I'm not going to show you because it looks almost exactly like that exclusions page that I showed you. It just gives you the opportunity to do more global exclusions and assign those to devices. The network scan policy and the custom scan policy are very similar. So I'll do a network scan. You'll see, and this is true of the anti-malware enforcement policy. You can go in and choose basically the template, aggressive, normal, permissive that you want to do. In terms of protections, you can add in the scan targets. And in this case, I go in and add, it shows that I need to add a network directory using the following format, right? Host name or IP address. I save that. That's not a, oh, what did I do here? Oh, it's not right. Let me see here. Oh, help if I actually followed the format. There you go, an example that it will fail if you don't enter things correctly. Okay, so that could be my scan target. Then you have to specify some network file scan credentials. You actually select these from the credential vault. So if you notice when you go in here, it brings up the credential vault. You have to predefine those. I actually don't have any defined, so, but if I did, it would be listed here. And it has to be in the format of domain/username. So that's all explained. Let me continue without the, oh, it will. So you can do a recurring schedule, no schedule. So you might say, well, why would you want to define a scan and put no schedule to it? Well, that's because you can actually initiate scans through ZCC as a quick task. So you could go in and you could define a network scan or a custom scan and go in and then select devices and select devices to which that scan is assigned, and then click run this, and it would run the scan on those devices. The key to that is the scans still have to be assigned, or the policies still have to be assigned to the device to be able, for the quick scan to be able to run on it. So let's say that you have a group of devices that you want the custom scan to run on. You would create the policy, say no schedule, you'd assign that policy to all the devices, and then you would come back and run the quick scan or run the quick task against those devices to initiate the scan that way. As you can see, this just creates the policy, and then you can go in and edit the policy like we did the others. I'm going to jump. We have a lot of configuration options as well. Under security, you'll see that there's the anti-malware agent schedules. This lets you determine when full scans run on a device, when quick scans, when malware signature updates occur, and you can see that signature updates occur hourly. Anti-malware agent update schedule is every 4 hours. And then this last one at the bottom is this anti-malware agent installation schedule. And again, that occurs at policy enforcement, but you can really set whatever type of schedule you want. And of course, you can set this at the zone, but then you can override it on device folders and devices as well to get a more granular assignment schedule. There's an option that lets you run scan after installation. In order for the dashlets that I'm going to show you in just a minute to be able to report information back from to show information for the device has to run a scan and report back. So what this does is it says, hey, run a quick scan right after the agent has been installed, and then it initiates the report back to the ZENworks server and shows in the dashlets. All right, so I've talked a lot about enforcement on the endpoint, showing you what can be run on an endpoint if an end user has access to do all of that. Showing you in the policies what can be rolled down to in terms of configuration of the scan engine. Here's the security dashboard that lets you see what's going on in terms of your devices. So we're providing 4 default dashlets: the device malware status, device last malware scan, top malware threats, and the device malware signature version. Those 4 dashlets by default, and they're customizable, which I'll show you in a second to give you an idea of what's going on, or of not what's going on, but what you can do to get exactly the type of information that you want to monitor your devices. The device malware status dashlet shows actually shows what's happened in the last by default the last 24 hours. You can see that on 3 devices there have been no threats reported, and 1 device is actually unknown. That's because this device has not reported back to the ZENworks server in the last 3 days. So in order to make sure that you have fresh information and that you're not looking at information that could be old without knowing that, we added in this unknown status. I'm going to do something here real quick because it doesn't appear that I've gotten status back for that device. So I'm going to do a refresh, which which in a minute I should get some information. Because there were threats detected on that device, which was this Win10.0.0, this 101, the threat status as soon as it's rolled up should show threats. We have basically 4 threat statuses. One is no threats. The second one is resolved, and the third is unresolved. Resolved status means that a threat was detected, but it's been resolved. And by resolved, that means that it's been disinfected, quarantined, or deleted. Those are all considered resolved states because with those 3 states, that threat is no longer able to impact the device. Then we have unresolved threats. Unresolved threats are threats that have for which the agent is denying access to the file, or that the file has been ignored. And which means that the threat is actually still on the device, and you probably will want to look at that device to find out what you want to do with that. Maybe it's a thing where the threat has the on access scan denied access, because that's what the policy setting is doing. That gives you an opportunity to look at what file is having access denied to it, and make the choice as to whether or not you want to exclude that from the scan, or whether or not maybe it needs to be quarantined or deleted or something like that. So that's the unresolved status. Okay, so now my device is reported back up. You can see that it actually shows unresolved, one threat as being unresolved. In terms of the dashlet, there's different detection periods. This is showing the last 24 hours. Now that's the last 24 hours based upon when the device reported up. So it could be slightly different 24 hours for different devices, but the idea is that since in the previous 24 hours of when the device reported its status, this was its status. You can also do last 7 days. You can see that things change a little bit from the looks. You can see in the last 7 days that I've actually had 2 devices that had unresolved threats on them rather than just one. So that means that somewhere between day 2 and day 7, there was an unresolved threat on there that's not being shown in the last 24 hours because the last 20 it didn't occur in the last 24 hours, but it did occur in the last 7 days. And then the last 30 days, the same thing. You can see the status for the last 30 days. You can customize and save these dashlets however you want. So for example, let's say that you have a set of devices that are for remote workers, and you've created a group, a device group that includes those devices. You could select that device group here, and this dashlet would only show the status for all of your remote workers, right? So that you can monitor those separately and have them pulled out, their status pulled out from all of your overall device, from your total number of devices in your organization. And go back in here. If we look at this Win10, this 101, when I click on unresolved, it takes me into the for the actual device, and you can see that it shows the last. Here we explode out and show you the status for all of those days. So here we can see that in the last 24 hours, there's been one threat, and at least one of those is unresolved. So that, and the same thing is true of the last 7 days. At least one of those threats is unresolved. And then in the last 30 days, there's actually been 4 detected threats, of which at least one is unresolved as well. And that's going to happen when you have an unresolved threat detected in the last 24 hours. Obviously, that last 24 hours falls into the last 7 days and the last 30 days. So you're going to see that. We may very well see that it could be the same threat across that's causing all of these. Um, Then we have some information about the module, the agent, the malware signature. You can initiate an update. You can monitor the quarantine and see the file count. You can delete all, restore all from there. You can see the scan schedule for each of the scan types. If you had custom scans or network scans here, you would see those as well. And then we get down to showing the threat the threats. So in the last 30 days, these 4 threats have been found. It shows when they were last detected on the device, the number of files that were infected or impacted by that threat, and the status for that threat and the threat type. So if we actually go down here and look at, I'm going to this this BD test signature, we'll see that in some cases, and this probably would not be what you would see in your actual environment, but because we're using test files and they're configured to give different results. So really what happened, depending on the type of scan and what's going on. So you'll see that in this case, the file was quarantined. In this case, it was denied access. In this case, it was disinfected. Um, you're probably not going to see that same type of behavior in a production system because unless you have really uh, different remediation actions for the different types of scans. But in this case, because we're trying to generate as much information as possible, we're getting these. But you can see for each file what the current status is. In this case, it's quarantined, that when that action was taken, what the detecting scan was for that. And then let's say that you have a quarantine file that that you know it is safe, right? Maybe it's some in-house file that was flagged. You can actually come in and restore that file from the quarantine. Or if you want to delete the file from the quarantine, you can do that as well. When you restore the file, you can exclude it from future on access or on demand scans. We actually just recently made a change. Those are selected by default going forward. So if you don't want them excluded, you actually have to deselect those because the fact of the matter is if you're restoring it, in most cases you will want to exclude it from future scans. You can override the file and if it exists in a restore location, keep a copy of the file. You can restore it to a new location and so forth. So there's a lot of things that can be done on the files. You'll notice that this threat, if I click this threat, it brings me to the malware threat page where I can see the name of the malware. It's a virus. Everything is actually color coded. So viruses are all this orange color. You'll see the other types are a different color. We can see when it's first detected, the device on which it was first detected, um, and uh, and then the last detection time. And then you can see the infected devices and what their current status is and what the files are, right? So again, unresolved means that the file has either been denied access to or has been ignored. And those are probably the ones that you want to check out.
Those,
Paul, I need a time check here.
yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
One thing to question, and those devices that are listed in this particular dashlet are only those that have the enrollment policy because it's installed, right?
Great question, Paul, and great call out. Yes, you are right. So if uh, in all of the dashlets, we only take into account the devices that have the anti-malware enforcement policy assigned.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, so if I had another 5 devices in my zone that don't have the anti-malware policy assigned, anti-malware enforcement policy, they don't show up. And as a matter of fact, I do have another device in my zone. It's actually a Linux appliance, and you'll see that it's not listed here, and it never would be because since it's a Linux appliance, it can't have an anti-malware enforcement policy assigned to it. And if we go actually look at the devices, it's my server. My ZenDoc 2A appliance. If we go in here, we'll see that there is no anti-malware page even available
Gotcha.
for that. Whereas this other device, it's a Windows device, it's a 2016 device. It does have the policy assigned to it, and it has the anti-malware page.
Very good. Thank you.
So, yep, exactly. Back to the security. Dashboard. Talk about that. The device last malware scan is simply that. It lets you know when the last time the device did a malware scan, with a little bit more oomph behind it than just whether or not any scan occurred. So by default, what we do is the default dashlet reports up when the last time any scan occurred, right? You can see from the grid below that it shows the last scan time and the last scan type. And for three of these devices, the last scan type was a quick scan. For the other one, the last one was a full scan. But we also show the last time a full scan occurred, a quick scan, a custom scan, a network scan occurred, which haven't happened on these devices. And then of course you can add in other information, other columns if you want to know additional information. So for example, the next scheduled full scan, if you wanted to know that. Um, so a lot of information you can get that way. That way, you can kind of find if there's any issues that might be happening with the device from a scan perspective. You can also do it by scan type. So when was the last time a full scan occurred? And when was the last time, on a device? And you can see that in this case, there were 2 devices that happened uh, between 1 and 7 days, and then the other 2 devices, it was between 7 to 30 days. And we can click on something and like that, 7 to 30 days, and filter those out and be able to see those types of things. Same thing with quick scan. When was the last time a custom scan was applied, and so forth. The top malware threats lets you see threats that have been detected across your system. We can see that this BD test signature has been detected on 3 devices. This one has been detected on 1, and all of the other 3 have been detected on 1. You notice that it tells you the type of threat, again, color coded to show you that. This will show up to 10 threats in the top malware threats list. I only have 4, but if you had more, it would show and order those appropriately, and then the additional threats would be shown below. But you can see the type, the total devices, any of the devices on which any of the devices that have unresolved threats, right? So that you can focus on those. If the device is resolved, not probably not anything to worry about. Again, the unresolved devices is probably what you want to focus on. You can, and then from here you can go in and look at the individual threat information. So by default, we're showing it by number of devices. You could instead do it by showing it by devices with unresolved threats, which in this case happen to line up with the number of devices, or you could do it in the order of most recently detected, which again is lining up because of our stats. And then again, do different, last 24 hours. Okay, in this case, this is the only one detected in the last 24 hours. And you could save this as a custom dashlet if you wanted to show the last 24 hours. You can do by threat type. If there's a certain type that you are wanting to track, you can do that as well. And then the last dashlet that's added that is available is the device malware signature version. And what this does is it shows the version of the malware signature on your devices. And in this case, I've got four devices, and each one has a separate malware signature version on it, which I did on purpose just to show you more information. But this would allow you to be able to look at it and say, okay, so I've got these devices that are a little outdated. You probably don't need to worry about it because it'll happen during the next update. But if if there were devices that continued to linger with an older malware signature version, it means that there's something going wrong with their update process, or they're not checking in to get an update, and that would allow you to look at those devices more closely. If we go in, you can see the devices, the signature versions. Again, you can see a lot of different things that way. You can also, so this is the default one. You could also do one that shows the agent versions, because those are updated as well. In this case, all of the devices are updated to the latest anti-malware agent version, but you could track that. And across different device types and so forth. So a lot of flexibility in terms of that. I think I've shown an awful lot here today. Probably best now if I just wrap up and see if there are any other questions, or if there was anything that I left out that anyone has a question about.
Sure, thanks, Darrin. Yeah, you've been very comprehensive on it. I appreciate that. There was one of our partners, CIS Techs, Jose, has a question about future sales and considerations and feature parity with other offerings from other vendors. And then, is there a migration path, if they do have a solution in place, a migration path to the ZCM product?
So feature parity. I guess my question on feature parity is what things are you looking at that potentially you think are missing? The
He's he's
different.
he's comparing it to Bitdefender's offering. Apparently, it sounds like he has a customer with Bitdefender, and he would like
Okay.
to get him to migrate to ZCM. And is there a migration path, and is there a feature parity with what we provide with Bitdefender?
So we're very close with Bitdefender. Bitdefender has does a, depending on the solution that you have from Bitdefender, um, they do some other things with the rest of their product. For example, they have a thing called um, ransomware ransomware protection or something like that. And basically, what they do is it's really just they allow you to monitor some folders, and then potentially do some restoration of some files, and that varies from vendor to vendor, right? Those types of things. Right now, our solution is strictly malware detection and remediation. So we're not doing any folder monitoring for something like that. But in terms of just straight um, from in terms of straight uh, virus, malware protection, threat detection, and remediation, um, we're we're we provide basically the same features as Bitdefender. And if you can say that you provide the same feature set as Bitdefender, you're pretty much saying that you provide the same or better than most others, because Bitdefender is one of the top AV solutions available.
Right, and our solution is one of the top three anyhow from,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And not to say too much more, but we are we're bit I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this. We are a good match with Bitdefender. So yeah, yeah. So the migration path would really be that if they have another solution, they basically need to disable that solution on their devices and then roll this policy to that. We don't cut over from another solution automatically, and they have to. And actually, um, other than Windows Defender, which we turn off when we install, although you can re-enable Windows Defender if you want some additional scanning capabilities. But the fact of the matter is, Windows Defender is not going to catch anything that we don't. Um, but we don't automatically uninstall another scan engine. That can be kind of problematic. So we've chosen to take the safer way and say that um, in terms of migration, you need to remove the other product and then roll our product out.
And if you have ZENworks, you could probably leverage ZENworks bundle to take care of that.
Sure, absolutely. Kick off an uninstall bundle and take care of that. Yep.
Well, this is another great component for the enterprise security on the endpoints. I think it's going to be a great add, an asset to this product. Darrin, did you have any last words for this? I mean, I appreciate
Yeah,
this look.
yeah. Well, first of all, thanks, Paul, for letting me be here and show this off a little bit. We're excited about it. We feel that we're at the beginning of our roadmap with anti-malware protection from the perspective of some of the things that I mentioned. By introducing anti-malware into endpoint security management, we have a lot of existing capabilities that we can tie into, so that if a threat is detected that's of a certain type or whatever, we could potentially we can put in some rules and some integrity. We call them integrity rules. That's, for example, if a certain type of threat is detected, maybe that means that you want all the firewall ports shut down or certain firewall ports shut down. We have that ability because of our endpoint security product to be able to control firewalls, to be able to control Wi-Fi and network access, to be able to control USB drive connectivity, to block applications, to do things like that. So that's why I say we're at the beginning of our anti-malware or malware protection roadmap, because by having the anti-malware agent installed, we're providing the base protection. But going forward, we're looking at ways of, as I said, integrating these other components in so that not only is it detecting, but it's also and doing the remediation on the threat, but it's also giving you the ability to kick off other things, which is kind of along the lines of this malware or this ransomware protection that I was talking a little bit about with Bitdefender. Um, that allow you to do other things on the device that can help protect maybe a device that's already been infected from spreading that infection elsewhere.
Certainly, certainly. Yeah, no, this is great. I appreciate it, Darrin. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us such a comprehensive look. We look forward to the update 2 coming out so that we can do more with it and put this in our environment for securing the endpoints. Thanks for taking your
Awesome.
time.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Bye bye. Okay, so there you have it. Endpoint security is bringing in anti-malware, and we're just excited that you're able to get that soon. I mean, it's in Lighthouse right now, so it should be coming out fairly quickly. Normally, there's 2 to 4 weeks of Lighthouse to make sure we get the final wrap-ups and production environments, and then we wrap it up and send it out. So I'm excited to provide that for you. I'm glad Darrin was able to come aboard and show it to us so that we have an inside look. Um, and I don't have anything else except to say update 2 again, ideas and features next week, and upcoming schedules, and check out the blog that's coming up so that you see what's coming up in the future months ahead. I appreciate everybody being here and joining us today, spending the time, and those viewers that are watching the recording, thank you very much for watching the recording. Put any comments down below. Subscribe to notifications if you can, and we look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks. All right? Thank you, and stay safe, and have a good week. Take care.